like this, make it drop like one time like this, make it pop like this, make it knock like one time like
If you look at all these places we've been together in Africa, I mean, there's so much untapped potential there.
Yeah.
So I found that inspiring. You just take something you know works in the West, you adopt it to the local market.
What has been the biggest decision or the hardest decision for you?
There were always other opportunities who came up. You know, for me personally, great job offers, which ultimately I turned down, but I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure if that was a wise decision. I've often seen other guys who, you know, want to build like the next Amazon or something unrealistic. Actually, I ran a restaurant slash nightclub. So, but of course, that was something very unrelated.
Yeah.
And I always had interest in tech stuff.
Two things. Number one, I wish I knew how to raise money from investors. I think also some financial literacy would have helped. But I also believe that the knowledge I've gained now through the process itself, I feel like it's more valuable than what I would have learned if I wasn't doing the actual task. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Mentorship Uncomplicated. I'm your host, Wallace Gige. And today I've got a special guest in the house, my co-founder, Mr. Broecher. We've been talking a lot about him in previous episodes, and I'm sure most of you guys have been wondering what he looks like, how he looks like. This is a gentleman right here. This is the guy that I started my ventures with. I'll say ventures because it's not just one particular one particular product. I mean, all through my tech life, I've known Jens. I mean, I've been working with Jens for quite some time, and I believe even in the future we'll be working together on quite some really nice stuff. So welcome to the episode.
Thanks for that,
Mr. Broecher. So a bit of a backstory as to why I started Mentorship Uncomplicated is because through my business journey, I met quite a lot of mentors, and the way I would learn from them is through them giving me stories about their journeys, and I'll pick a few lessons from the journey and see how I can practice that. And I learned quite a lot, and I've decided that I'll be inviting people, my friends, my colleagues, and anybody that's interested or is doing something to discuss about their life, and we see whether our listeners or our viewers can pick a few things from there.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so you're a very important guest because of two specific reasons. Number one, you've been involved in my life for quite a bit, maybe the last 10 years.
Yeah, we go way back.
Very way back. And there's quite a lot of questions that I receive from entrepreneurs or founders, especially in tech. And a lot of it has to do with tech and how to find partners in tech, whether you should pay yourself, whether you should pay through the tech and all that. And I think it's important that they hear your perspective on this so they can know in the future as they plan what to do about it.
Yeah, I think for any startup in the tech space, it's important that there's a technical co-founder as part of the team, because if you want to just work with let's say with freelancers, or if you want to build your own tech team, first of all you need their capital right from the start to pay these guys. So that can be a challenge. But also you know, if they are not co-founders or they don't hold any stakes in the business, they might not have the same motivation that you as a founder or the entrepreneur has. So I think that's why for any tech startup or any startup in general, you know, which involves IT to some extent, I think it's always important to have the founders, at least a few of the founders or the co-founder, let's say, have them have a developer background or some tech background. Yeah. Best of all, of course, is if also you in this case, or let's say if all people have at least some understanding of IT system architecture, trends in the industry. So yeah, I think this is a good advice I can give to anyone looking to start
into tech.
into tech.
I feel like that's very important because we founders sometimes tend to want to keep 100% of everything ourselves, and we think we can pay through everything as you go, but it's quite expensive, especially if you're looking for top tier developers. As you can see, we're shooting from a different location today. I'm not in my studio. We're currently on the road. We're in Germany right now.
In Düsseldorf.
In Düsseldorf. Jens is from here. And I believe that certain developers come with different qualities and different expertise. So if you're looking for top tier expertise, man, it will cost you a lot if you're looking at paying through yourself or paying through the thing yourself. It will siphon all your capital if you have any. And if you don't have any, you'll definitely end up owing your developers, and they might end up owning 100% of the business. So I feel it's important that as you start, you get into some sort of an equity agreement where they can come in as partners, and you guys build the business together. So Jens, let's kick this off. I've come to you. I think I've come to you with ideas every other week.
Yeah.
Most people might not know this, but you and I have built probably more than 10 products, all the way from Rwanda. I think we built like 2 or 3.
Yeah, some worked, some didn't.
Some worked, some didn't. Zimbabwe, we built 2 or 3. Then Zambia, we've done this in Congo, we've done this in we've done this everywhere. But I also want to understand from your own perspective. Anytime I came to you with these ideas, what was going through your mind? What made you? Because I don't think you've ever said I had no. You've always been very open-minded and willing to explore this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I always looked at it from several perspectives.
Yeah.
So the first one, of course, would be, does it make sense from a business perspective?
Yeah.
The business model. Do I see this working? How's the market? So let's say from a business perspective. Then the second, of course, is a technical feasibility.
Yeah.
Can we pull this off? What resources would it take? Especially in the beginning when we were small, basically just us.
Yeah.
So of course we didn't have a lot of resources, so we needed to also check if is this something we can pull off.
Yeah.
Realistically, because I've often seen other guys who want to build like the next Amazon or something unrealistic, and oftentimes when there's entrepreneurs who want to do something in the tech space, but they don't necessarily have that tech background.
Yeah.
They just sometimes, I mean, you've also experienced how some people have really unrealistic, very bold ideas, but so luckily, when it came to you, you always had a good understanding what can be done.
Yeah.
And also business-wise, I mean, we always did proper we always had a proper look at the market.
Yeah. Which I feel is quite important, because I keep talking about the alignment between co-founders, and I think as much as you and I might disagree in healthy ways about certain stuff, it's on agreement. And it's a bit of a red flag when you and your co-founders are always disagreeing about stuff. You don't have a common interest. It becomes a bit hard for you to pull things off. So, but also one thing I keep insisting is that you also need to make sure that you do your co-founders justice. What I mean by that is, if you're bringing a certain a certain skill to the table, make sure you're delivering your best at it. So, for example, myself, in our equation, I'm the guy that builds the business. So I'm the business developer. I'm the guy that goes into markets and establishes these businesses on ground. And of course, I have to do that to the best of my ability. So even when my co-founders say that, they're like, you know what, this guy is doing his level best to at least make sure whatever we're doing wins. So it's also, they feel obliged to make sure that they're bringing the same to the table so that they can strike some sort of a balance.
One time like this, make it pop like this, make it knock like. One time like this, make it pop like this, knock like this, make it drop. One time like this, make it pop.
Yeah.
Like this, knock like this, make it drop.
So you come from a very different background.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Where there's a bit of, I mean, it's the gap is huge, it's massive. So probably whatever we are trying to build or whatever we try to build have already existed and you've seen it work. Did you ever feel that building a business in Africa would be a disadvantage compared to you using the same skill here, where at least you don't have to go through the hassle? Because let's just be honest, I mean, it's been a hassle, man. Everything is
I mean, definitely.
everything is hard.
Yeah.
From setting up, from getting capital, which is almost impossible, to scaling, it's probably 15-20 times harder compared to maybe where we here in Europe. I mean, I believe that if you have started something and you show some sort of market fit or some sort of traction, then at least there's a system that's able to build you towards growth. But where we come from, it's, I mean, you grind all the way to the end. So did you ever feel like maybe I should have put my energy into some projects that are here as compared to the ones between Africa?
No, I think, as with everything in life, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
So, when we first met, I had already been living in Africa for several years.
Yeah.
So actually, it had always been my dream to build some kind of digital service tech startup there.
Yeah.
And I had long been thinking about it. Because one thing, when you come from Europe, or as you know, I have also lived in the US, in the States for quite some time.
Yeah.
So of course you have all this inspiration, all these ideas of products and services you've seen there, and then when you come to Africa, you find most of it isn't there or very subpar. Maybe some guys are trying, but it's not on the level where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Now, of course, in Kenya, we've seen so many services launch, rapid development of such digital offerings and services. But if you look at all these places we've been together in Africa, I mean, there's so much untapped potential there.
Yeah.
So I found that inspiring. But as you mentioned, of course, it also comes with the downsides.
Yeah.
So compared to here in Germany, there's not much support for startups.
Yeah.
Access to capital, a big issue.
Yeah.
I mean, here it's way easier to get startup loans, access to investors, networking, everything much easier here. There are so many resources for founders, for startups. And of course, the same goes for the States. Might even be easier there than in Germany.
100%.
Yeah. So, but yeah, in general, in let's say in the Western world, Europe, the States, much easier when it comes to that. Now, the downside also, of course, is there are so many startups which are already here. Pretty much anything you can think of, someone else has either already done it or is currently working on it. So it's very hard to innovate, to come up with an original idea.
And they're already far ahead when it comes to funding.
Exactly. So in Africa, of course, you have that advantage that you can tap into all this potential, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel there. I mean, you can just look, okay, let's see what is lacking in this country, this place, and you just take something you know works in the West. You adopt it to the local market, and and then if you build a quality product and you offer quality services, it's pretty much guaranteed to work.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think Africa or developing countries in general, developing nations, it offers great chances for entrepreneurs.
Of you actually making something big.
Yes.
And at least being a pioneer in some way. Okay, we'll be right back.
One time like this, make it pop like this, make it knock like. One time like this, make it pop like this, knock like this, make it drop. One time like this, make it pop like this.
So, Mr. Jens, let me ask you a question. Through this whole process of us building these 57 businesses that we've started, what has been the biggest decision or the hardest decision for you, or some of the hardest decisions? It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah, one definitely was whether we should leave the one market. Right? I mean, we weren't too sure about whether that's the right move. Because we had put a lot of time and effort into it. We had a running business, even though it was small, but it was working quite well, and we had built a team that worked well. We had the tech that worked reasonably well. So I think that was a hard decision. We weren't sure about what next steps to take. So I think definitely that. Also, of course, there were always other opportunities who came up, you know, for me personally. So I had some great job offers, which ultimately I turned down. But of course, I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure if that was a wise decision. I mean, you know, I could have made a lot of money from these projects, and so, but in the end, I always stick to what we are doing. So, don't ask me why. I don't know myself. What wrote me there? But I think these were some of the hardest decisions.
I think it's a fair point, and it's something that I'm sure most people or most startups struggle with, where you start with your co-founders, and then through the process it gets quite hard for as you grow the business, and then some of your co-founders are sitting at a point of advantage than you, and they start getting job offers, and then they get themselves into this dilemma whether they should leave the startup full-time and go get a job, especially if they've got families and responsibilities, which is something I think that it has to be looked at, because when you're starting, you don't want your co-founders dropping in the middle of the middle of the journey, and then you're stuck there, especially if they're holding very key positions. What do you wish you knew before we started this business? I will answer the same question too.
I mean, of course,
Not businesses, sorry.
yeah. Of course, we didn't really come from a business background before. I mean, yeah, we had done a few things before that. I mean, I believe you had this fashion, the fashion e-commerce store and so on.
And all that stuff.
Yeah, I had some of my own projects before we met and before we got into all of this. Yeah, actually, I ran a restaurant slash nightclub. So, but of course, that was something very unrelated.
Yeah.
And I always had interest in tech stuff. So before I had some like a marketing agency, basically. I mean, that's what I was doing before we met. But yeah, my point is, I mean, we didn't really have all the knowledge we do now have and experience. So I think we learned this through the journey, and yeah. So I wish we had some more background in that before we started these companies. Some business background, business knowledge.
Okay. I think for me, two things. Number one, I wish I knew how to raise money from investors.
That as well,
yeah. Because I came to learn that quite late or deep into the process after we had bootstrapped for quite some time, which of course drains you.
Yeah.
I think also some financial literacy would have helped. But I also believe that the knowledge I've gained now through the process itself, I feel like it's more valuable than what I would have learned if I wasn't doing the actual task. So no regrets there. Okay, so I've like I said, I've been receiving a lot of, and I know that a lot of people that follow this podcast or want to or follow me somehow is because they're also interested somehow in tech. And I would like to use this series to address any questions they have when it comes to tech. Co-founders that do tech, the tech itself. Mr. Jens here has got skills in a ton of things I can't even start mentioning here. So if you've got any tech questions, so what we're doing is this will be part one, and then we'll do another part two, where we'll address specific questions that you guys might have. I've tried to make this a bit short so that we can use it to build up on a series of conversations, especially about tech. So if you've got any technical questions, if you've got questions to do with co-founders that are manning the tech part, please feel free to reach out to me directly on my social media pages. You can also comment on our YouTube videos and any other social media platforms that we are on. And then what I'll do is we'll shoot another maybe 30-45 minutes addressing your questions or questions that you might have with Jens while I'm still here. And then when I go back to my studio, we'll continue now with other series with other guests. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll come back with part two for part two with Mr. Jens Broecher.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for this time. Do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to like. Do not forget to share this with your friends. It's always a pleasure having you guys around. And don't forget that this episode and this podcast is sponsored by AfriDelivery. That's your one-stop shop for online services. You're talking about your food deliveries, your on-demand couriers, everything. AfriDelivery.app or download the AfriDelivery app itself. And hopefully very soon they'll be able to sponsor us as we travel around so that we can have the same quality of content across the world. So thank you. I've been your host, Mr. Wallace. We'll see you next week. So shoot your questions. Thank you. Bye bye.
One time like this, make it pop like this, make it knock like. One time like this, make it pop like this, knock like.